off on another car journey today. I'm actually on my way to my folks' house to do some filming there because I really need to sort of redecorate my place and my bedroom specifically, which is where I want to do most of my filming from going forward. So I'm getting that sorted out in the new year. But to give a nice backdrop, I'm going to steal their place for a while. So I thought while I'm driving there, I would discuss a little bit about diabetes, because I've been talking about doing this film for a while, finally getting around to it. So, big question is, what is diabetes? And a lot of people just assume that it's the inability to eat sugar or have sugar. And no, not really. It's actually not that at all. The sugar intake you have will play a part in it, but it's not the actual issue. So you got two types of diabetes. You got type 1, which is generally found in young children. So usually between sort of very early ages in life, they develop type 1 diabetes. And type 1 diabetes is basically where your pancreas creates insulin, and that insulin then works its way through the body and does great many things, but one of the big ones is to remove all this extra glucose from your blood, which you would probably say glucose, sugar, hence where the whole sugar thing comes into it. So yes, with type 1 usually, or it is where your pancreas isn't producing insulin, which is why they need to take insulin injections so that their body has enough to do the work that needs to be done. Now, type 2 diabetes, which is a diabetes I was diagnosed with earlier, I was going to say earlier in the year, but we're on the 1st, so last year, is slightly different. It's a similar thing. It's all to do with your pancreas and the insulin levels, but it's basically where your body's struggling to get the insulin out there to do the job that it needs to do. Now, this could be caused by restrictions in the insulin getting out there. It could be that there's not enough insulin, but you are producing it, just that your pancreas and your body's not doing the best of jobs. Now, that can be managed through pills. Worst case scenario, it can be managed through insulin injections. But it can also be managed and fully controlled via diet. Now, when you go for, I don't know too much about type 1. Okay, I'll say that offhand. I've got friends who have type 1 diabetes. They will have a lot more information on this. So I'm going to specifically look at the type 2 because I've got a bit more knowledge in that. Now, when you go to a dietitian and you have type 2 diabetes, they show you how to monitor the sugar intake in your diet, and this in turn helps control the sugar or glucose in your blood, because this is where a lot of the extra sugars come from, is from your intake through foods. And when you're looking at your food labels, you'll always see that by carbohydrates, it has per 100 grams, it's got carbohydrates and then of which sugars. And it's the of which sugars that dietitians will get you to monitor, and you want to keep that as a minimum. So anything I think it's less than 5 grams, from memory, less than 5 grams per 100 grams of sugar is a green light. You can eat that in abundance. Anything around sort of the 15 mark, you can eat in moderation, and anything over and above 15, specifically over the 18 and upwards, avoid it like the plague. And you'll find that a lot of your processed foods, your microwave meals, things along those lines, all have really high sugar content. Now, that sugar comes from all the extra sugars that they throw into the meal. So, and this will have the impact in your sugar levels within your body. So what causes diabetes? Well, type 1 was self-explanatory. Your pancreas doesn't work. Your pancreas is basically buggered, and it's just not producing insulin. So your body cannot get rid of this extra glucose or sugars or whatever you want to call it. Type 2, again, a completely different story. The main causes in type 2 diabetes is diet and basically an unhealthy lifestyle. You'll hear people saying all the time that people with a very large middle area, gut, belly, are at higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And this is true. And why is it true? Well, if you've ever, for instance, a lot of people will go and get a liver function test done if they're overweight. And this is where the fat around your liver are basically stopping your liver doing the job it's meant to do. This is the same for your pancreas. So the more fat that you carry around your midsection, which is where your pancreas and kidneys and all the rest of it are, it basically stops everything working properly. Your pancreas, or the release of the insulin from your pancreas, is fighting against all of this fat in your body, trying to get out there and do the job that it wants to do. Now add to that you can get fat in every single part of your body, so it affects your bloods. Add to that the fact that if you're eating a lot of meat and it starts to clog up arteries and things like that, and these all affect the flow of your blood, and your heart's having to work more. There's this knock-on effect basically whereby if you're really unhealthy, out of shape, fat, very poor diet, all of this is going to put you at high risk of developing type 2 diabetes if you don't have it already. And a lot of people have not yet been diagnosed. They reckon as many people that have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, there are as many, if not more, that have it and have not actually been diagnosed with it yet because there's been no reason to test them. So in a nutshell, that is diabetes. It's got nothing, well, it's not directly related to the sugar that you take in, but on developing it, what you eat in the way of sugar is going to affect things. Now I started to touch on sugar intake on this video, and I'm going to look at that in a video when I get to my parents. I'm going to look at sugar intake, ways that you can reduce that, and why being a vegan and eating lots of fruit which are rich in sugars is actually the best thing that you can ever do. Because a lot of people still believe that eating fruit with too much sugar is a bad thing. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not. It's the best thing you can ever do. And we'll get into that later. I will speak to you in a few minutes when I get parked up and I get into the house. Bye!